From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
I am asking you to not just fight back, but also fight for what we believe in.
The political season has begun. Tonight on Cronkite News, the fight to get more people at the polls.
Plus, while the Arizona Game and Fish Organization are preparing to get rid of snails in the Salt River.
And how those directly affected by immigration policies are coping with their feelings through the arts.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Felipe Corral Jr.
And I'm Emily Wirtz. Thank you for joining us.
In just over 3 months, Arizonans will head to the polls.
It's a critical election for our state. Jeff Flake's U.S. Senate seat is up for grabs. All of Arizona's 9 seats in the United States House of Representatives will be up for election. Governor Doug Ducey is running for re-election. We will also vote on the Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Arizona is considered a battleground state this year, and whether the state is red or blue might depend on the age of our voters. A new poll from Politico finds that in Arizona, 52% of our registered voters over the age of 50 support President Trump. For voters 18 to 49, the support drops to 30%. The same holds true when it comes to building a wall on the Mexican border. 57% of Arizona voters over the age of 50 support the idea. 37% of voters 18 to 49 want the wall.
There are about 3.5 million people registered to vote in Arizona. Organizations are working 7 days a week to potentially get that figure closer to 4 million. One Arizona just launched its campaign with a goal of registering 200,000 voters. Reporter Gabriela Becerra shares how organizers plan to hit that plateau.
One Arizona is a nonprofit organization with a focus on Latino voter registration. The push to November began this past weekend on the state capitol lawn.
My mom became a U.S. citizen in 2008. She was the first person in our family to be eligible to vote. And I remember as a little girl, I would hand her the ballot and I would tell her, "Mom, you have to vote." She was my voice. She was the voice of my family. And this year, I actually get to vote for the first time. I know.
Ariana Meza is a volunteer at the Arizona Center for Empowerment, an organization working with One Arizona. For her, registering voters is a way to give back to her family that immigrated to the United States and for girls across the country.
Growing up, there wasn't a lot of females in positions of power, and this what we are working for, our work empowers people, it empowers girls, and it is an honor to know that I am empowering girls in our communities to take action.
Her team is working towards the goal of 200,000 registered voters by visiting parks, schools, and bus stops within the city. She says her team has already registered over 10,000 new voters. The Secretary of State's office reports that Arizona's voter turnout was 47% in 2014 during the last midterm election.
We have been fighting, and that we have a lot of lessons to teach to the rest of the nation on what we can do to make sure that we are not going through the same thing at the national level.
You must be registered to vote 29 days prior to Election Day. For the 2018 primary election, that deadline falls 2 weeks from today, on July 30th. Gabriela Becerra, Cronkite News.
President Trump is heading back to the U.S. after spending almost a week in Europe. The trip ended with his summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Their meeting was followed by a short news conference. President Trump said Putin had denied interfering in the election and said there was no collusion by the Trump campaign.
During today's meeting, I addressed directly with President Putin the issue of Russian interference in our elections. I felt this was a message best delivered in person. Spent a great deal of time talking about it, and President Putin may very well want to address it, and very strongly, because he feels very strongly about it, and he has an interesting idea.
Putin's idea is that he thinks Russian and U.S. intelligence officials can work together. He wants Russia to be given the opportunity to help the United States investigate the crimes the U.S. says Russia has committed.
The summit came 2 days after a warning from the Department of Homeland Security on Russian meddling in the U.S. election process. Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen told a conference of U.S. state officials that Russia is looking at U.S. elections as a prime target for interference. She warned Russia is targeting this November's midterms to match its activities back in 2016.
Both of Arizona's senators are criticizing President Trump. Senator Jeff Flake tweeted that he never thought he would see the day when our American president would stand on stage with the Russian president and place blame on the United States for Russian aggression. Senator John McCain called today's news conference disgraceful. He sent out a statement that reads, in part, President Trump proved not only unable but unwilling to stand up to Putin. He and Putin seem to be speaking from the same script. Today's press conference marks a recent low point in the history of the American presidency.
The government is issuing more money to help fight an invasive mussel that is attacking several lakes in Arizona. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation has allocated over $4 million to several western states battling the Quagga Mussel. Arizona was among the first western states to find the invasive mussels following their 2007 discovery in Lake Mead. Quagga mussels cause damage to ecosystems and fisheries. They contribute to poor water quality and algae blooms. Mussels aren't the only invasive species in our water.
The Arizona Game and Fish Department is also trying to get some snails out of the river. Jordan Daphnis explains how you can get involved and make our waterways better.
Apple snails, also known as mystery snails, may seem familiar, and that's because they're a common household pet. But these snails are making homes in places where they don't belong, like the Salt River. Apple snails are commonly seen in home aquariums, but they are a threat to Arizona's rivers and lakes.
They take up space and food, and these particular snails, they eat a lot of vegetation. They'll even eat small native snails and eggs.
The apple snails will eat anything, but most species won't eat them.
The other wildlife that typically eats snails don't like to eat apple snails because they don't taste good.
Therefore, these snails are free of predators and free to reproduce.
They lay up to 500 eggs per mass, and then, as I said, they lay those every 10 to 14 days.
With the help of volunteers, the Arizona Game and Fish Department scans the Salt River, working to limit the apple snail population.
And then we spend about 20 minutes on either side of the river just counting them, the snail masses, so we can get an idea of their population and density. And then there's a little group that comes behind us and knocks down the egg masses. And then if we find any of the juvenile or adult snails themselves, we'll remove those as well.
Rainey says anyone can join them on the trip as long as they've taken a paddle sports education course.
It takes a lot of people just because they do lay their eggs so often and so quickly that it always helps to get volunteers.
Volunteers are heading out to the river later this week, and they'll be heading out again on August 17th. In Phoenix, Jordan Daphnis, Cronkite News.
Today, a federal judge ordered a temporary stop to any deportations of reunited families who were separated by the Trump administration after crossing the southwest border. The stoppage comes after the American Civil Liberties Union asked for a delay. The ACLU claims parents need a week after being reunified to decide whether to pursue asylum. The temporary stop in deportations is to give the Justice Department time to file a response to the ACLU. Migrant parents separated from their children are asking for help. In an open letter, a group of families are appealing directly to the American people. The joint letter is from 54 detainees. They say they came to the U.S. illegally to save the lives of their children.
A local organization is helping people of all ages who are undocumented and directly affected by immigration. Reporter Amanda Mason attended the performance and art gallery that allowed voices of migrants to be heard.
Aliento, a community organization, hosts art workshops to help undocumented, DACA recipients, and all of those personally affected by immigration policies to heal by freedom of expression through all art forms. Through poetry, art, and dance, members of the community come to celebrate their heritage and express the struggle of being a migrant or undocumented. Jose Mascareño, a 14-year-old undocumented migrant, drew his struggles. He's happy as an outlet to express himself and wants other kids to feel the same.
I want them to feel happiness. Like, I want them to feel like they're not alone, that there's other people like them that could actually help, and that like right now, it doesn't matter as much. The future is what matters the most.
Being a child and knowing that you're undocumented is really hard.
Blanca Sierra, a DACA recipient, paints about overcoming obstacles in her life.
I went to college part-time, and I did like one class at a time, and I knew I wasn't ahead, and I started seeing my classmates graduate, and that just put me into a kind of a depression, because I felt I was never gonna get there. Like, they were getting done, they were finishing, they were where they wanted to be, and I couldn't be there. Not necessarily because I was a teen mom, but because I was undocumented, and I didn't have that privilege to be able to go to school freely like everybody did.
Reina Montoya is the founder of Aliento. She is a DACA recipient, and when her dad was detained for 9 months, she struggled with her emotions.
What I didn't know, it was how to process the fear and the anxiety of not knowing if my dad was ever gonna come back, having to look at my little brother's eyes and my little sister, and not having that certainty of what tomorrow holds.
She expressed herself through dance and wanted others to feel the same joy, so she started Aliento.
Aliento literally translates into breath, but when you give aliento to someone, it's like giving words of encouragement.
Aliento continues to serve their community and fundraise for their art workshops to help others heal. In the broadcast center, Amanda Mason, Cronkite News.
Coming up on Cronkite News, servicemen and servicewomen take to the diamond.
The first ever Pentagon co-ed softball game happened this past weekend. They may wear different uniforms on the playing field, but when it comes to our freedom, they are all on the same team.
Plus, it's a recreation center that makes a lasting contribution to the lives of thousands of Arizonans.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland.
In Washington.
In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. The 2018 election season has arrived. Join us for primary and general election debates. Right here, meet the candidates and hear their positions. Arizona Horizon, your source for what matters most this election season. Only on Arizona PBS.
One of the biggest sporting events will once again tip off in Arizona. The 2024 Final Four tournament is heading to Glendale.
The NCAA made the announcement a few hours ago. The tournament will be hosted at the University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale. The Valley beat out several other cities that were vying for the Final Four. Glendale hosted the event just last year in 2017. A spokesperson for the Arizona Office of Tourism says this is a huge win for our state.
This says a lot about our community. I think what people don't realize is how this community came together in 2017 to host these games. We had more volunteers than any other community out there.
Governor Doug Ducey sent out a statement this afternoon saying that he looks forward to welcoming the teams and their fans to our state, which is quickly becoming the nation's #1 destination for major sporting events.
Baseball's All-Star game is tomorrow night in Washington, but one All-Star from Arizona already took the field at Nationals Park.
And he took an unusual path to get there, enlisting in the Air Force. Danny Coble has a story from our Washington bureau.
Like many kids, Joshua Watson played baseball when he was growing up in Arizona, but he never seriously thought that he might one day play in a major league ballpark until Friday. That's when Watson took the field for the Air Force in the All-Star Service Classic Championship, part of the run-up to tomorrow's MLB All-Star Game.
It's a really big deal. It's really big for me. I grew up playing baseball, and to finally be on the big stage, something equivalent to something, like Major League Baseball, playing on the big field and stuff like that. It's a big honor, really big honor.
Friday's game was the first ever co-ed championship softball game between branches of the armed services. It capped a round-robin series of games between the branches through the month of June to determine the finalists, Air Force and Army. Players from other branches, Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard, were invited to watch the championship, which was just fine with Jonathan Mount of the Navy.
Just to enjoy the game with my girlfriend.
But on the field, Watson said it was an honor to play. He said he joined the Air Force in part because other members of his family had served in the military, and in part because he wanted to be a part of a bigger team.
I really want to be a part of something bigger than what I really am, be a part of a big team. That was the biggest thing.
But like any athlete, he took the time to thank people who helped him along the way.
I'd like to have a shout out to my family, the McClures and the Watsons, McClures and Watsons up in Baghdad, Arizona, and Prescott, and thanks for the support.
That support appeared to pay off. Air Force beat Army 9-3 to become the first All-Star Service Classic champions. From National Park in Washington, Danny Coble, Cronkite News.
Journalist and CNN anchor Anderson Cooper will be this year's recipient of the Excellence in Journalism Award from ASU's Walter Cronkite School. Cooper will be the 35th person to receive this award. He began his journalism career in 1992 and has reported live from over 40 countries. Other notable past recipients include Tom Brokaw, former anchor of NBC's Nightly News, Jane Pauley, former anchor of NBC's Today Show and founding co-host of Dateline NBC, Diane Sawyer, anchor of World News with Diane Sawyer, and most recent, Judy Woodruff and Gwen Eiffel, co-anchors and managing editors of PBS NewsHour. Coming up on Cronkite News, some world-class athletes competing nationwide.
Thanks to the training they get at the University of Arizona. Find out what makes the adaptive athletics program the best in the country.
And it's 102 degrees outside. We'll have your 7-day forecast coming up soon.
Cronkite News, weeknights at 5 on Arizona PBS.
I'm Matt Berry, ESPN Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
For the past week or so, Amanda Mason has your weather forecast.
Yes, it's 102 degrees outside with some low winds and some humidity around 26%, but that's not enough to be too hot out there. Now, there is an air quality alert, but we're going to take a look here in the valley. Triple digits all the way around, continuing to be hot. But as you can see right here, we're going to have about a 30% chance of thunderstorms tonight. So the winds and the rain are coming through, so we'll see if that follows through. Doesn't seem like it's going to be as big as it was last week, because you can see right here, there is no potential thunderstorms coming right here. It's just cloudy all throughout the day, which kind of drops the low tonight into around the high 80 degrees. So we'll have more for you coming up tomorrow, but this is your forecast in the triple digits. In the Cronkite Weather Center, Amanda Mason.
No university compares to the University of Arizona when it comes to giving student athletes with physical and mental disabilities the opportunity to suit up and compete.
Our Sam Hoyle went to the Wildcats Adaptive Athletics facility in Tucson to see what they offer.
That's right, Emily. Situated on the University of Arizona campus in Tucson is a facility that's helped countless athletes hone their skills for the last 42 years. Four-time Paralympic medalist Shirley Riley attributes much of her success to the University of Arizona's Adaptive Athletic program.
This place has so many opportunities to grow. Like I said, they have everything we need here.
The Wildcats program, which began in the mid-1980s, enables student athletes with disabilities to participate in 6 different competitive sports, including track, basketball, and rugby. While adaptive athletics are very prevalent here at the University of Arizona, the Adaptive Athletics Interim Athletic Director Peter Hughes says that the fact that adaptive athletics aren't more commonplace across the country is something that's pretty troubling.
You talk to my other counterparts across the country, it's really upsetting to us that a state like California does not have adaptive athletics. They're losing the opportunity to teach young men and women with disabilities that want to be competitive and want to play for a university this opportunity. It should be afforded to everybody.
While all 6 Pac-12 schools in California or Arizona offer some sort of recreational level of adapted sports like goalball at Cal Berkeley and adaptive tennis at UCLA, U of A is the only one of the 6 that offers a program that competes at an intercollegiate level or above. The 33-year-old Riley is currently escalating her training to compete in her 5th straight Paralympics, the 2020 Games in Tokyo. To find out more about the University of Arizona's Adaptive Athletics program, head to drc.arizona.edu/athletics. Sam Hoyle, Cronkite News.
Coming up on Cronkite News, a Valley gym that provides an active environment to the disabled. We'll take you inside a gym that has made it a place for people to thrive.
I like working for Cronkite News because it gives us the opportunity to find a different angle on the same stories that every other news outlet is covering across Arizona. As students, we have the opportunity to cover issues in all across the state of Arizona.
It gives me a good chance to sharpen my skills, improve my skills, learn the techniques in a newsroom and in the programs and teamwork and technology, getting me prepared for the real world. And at the same time, I think we do a great job, make some great stories, do great journalism for the city of Phoenix and the state of Arizona.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
It's a place to help the mind and body.
The Arizona Recreation Center for the Handicapped offers a day camp for adults to participate in everything from sports to crafts. Andrew Christensen explains how everyone keeps
a full understanding of what it means to be a part of this camp, and all for just $2 a day. Those that are involved say that it is definitely money well spent.
Basketball is one of the many activities adults at Arch can participate in. And running the court isn't the only physical activity the camp encourages. In the gym, they can go for a run on the treadmill or lift a few weights.
Our goal is just to provide a safe, comfortable environment for the disabled population to come and enjoy themselves, recreation, education, socialization, all those things that they might otherwise not have.
Arch has a drop-in program for anyone who wants to participate. Individuals who don't receive federal funding are able to pay what they can afford. Arch doesn't turn anyone away based on financial need.
One thing that's really nice about here is that they're very accepting of who you are, so you can be yourself. So something that other person, if I do a joke, they might sigh at and say, okay, all right, David, these guys eat it up.
Besides sports, Arch employees say there are other options to keep people busy. Whether it's having your nails done or making a dream catcher, there's potentially an option for everyone. Arch looks to help the disabled maintain a healthy lifestyle and remain independent.
Anything could be considered a handicap. I think everybody in the nation can have some form of a handicap. You know, I might not be able to do rocket science, but I can do some other things, and same with everybody that comes here.
Arch receives about 350 participants a week and also offers a kids camp. In downtown Phoenix, Andrew Christensen, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, it's been a year since Senator John McCain's brain cancer diagnosis and the consequences of seniors taking opioids. That's on the next Arizona Horizon.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, President Trump meets one-on-one with Vladimir Putin days after a grand jury indicts 12 Russian officials for interfering in the 2016 election. Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.